Hey, you guys, welcome to this episode of the Newday Podcast. My name is Larissa, and I'm here today with Harvey and Joel. These guys are both amazing church planters. And so that is what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about church planting, about mission, and how we can do that in our own lives as well, which is going to be really exciting. So let's just do a little overview of kind of where you guys have been in your lives and what's brought you here. So Harvey, you are from Malawi. We were just talking before, you lived in very near the same place I lived in the States, in St. Paul. You planted a church there.
That's right.
And now you're planting a church in Liverpool.
In Liverpool, that's right.
That's quite the journey.
It's been a long journey. Coming from Malawi, ending up in a random place like St. Paul, Minnesota, and now finding myself in Liverpool. But it's all been a journey around missions. So I've always worked with churches and worked with ministries. And so coming to Liverpool, where I am now, and really beginning to plant a church feels like, this is what God is calling me to do now. But yeah.
That's really cool, really cool.
Thanks.
And Joel, you and, was it your wife?
Yeah.
You guys planted a church in Turkey.
Yeah.
Now you're kind of coming back to the UK. But was that something that you always knew was on your heart, or when did God put that on your heart to do church planting and mission further afield outside of your home country?
So it was a long journey, really exploring where God was calling me to be involved in the world. And I think it's often a kind of step by step. Growing up, we had lots of people from different cultures through our home. And that was something that I was always fascinated by. But it wasn't until I was at university in London, I had many friends from different nations that I'd never encountered before. Yeah. And through speaking to them about their lives and learning about their backgrounds, their beliefs, I think this was when I realized actually the nations are in London, and I realized that God was inviting me to be part of what he was doing and part of his global plan to share his love with all peoples, with all nations. So that was, I think, the start of the journey. Obviously, fast forward, I went on a number of trips and visited lots of different nations, kind of working out how was I to be involved. And when I met my wife, she was also on a bit of a journey herself, exploring what God was talking to her about and exploring different nations. And she had a heart for the Middle East and for Muslim majority cultures as well. And so we both gathered some people and we took a team to visit the Middle East. And that was when we realized that God was speaking to us about moving, not just being involved in serving people in our own nation in London, but actually going and moving our lives. So we moved there, we learned the language, planted a church in the local language, and now local leaders have stepped up and are leading that. We've got 2 boys that were born in that city in the Middle East as well. And so now we've moved back to the UK, but our heart is really for the Middle East and for what God is doing there still as well.
That's really cool. That's awesome. It's great hearing, even from the intros there, that it's definitely something God has put on your heart to do. I think for anyone listening, you guys have done so many talks. This is what you live with in your heart all the time, so you're passionate about it. But how did you realize that was something God was calling you to do? You already touched on it a bit, Joel, so maybe Harvey, if you want to speak into that a bit.
Yeah, I was born at a place in Malawi where the first British missionaries set up their first mission station, led by David Livingstone himself. Yeah. And that meant that I was born into that story. My community still takes pride in the fact that they were the first people to receive the gospel in that part of the world. Growing up, hearing about missions and hearing about missionary work around the world, it became very clear to me at the age of 12 that this is what God was calling me to do. At that time, it did not make sense. This is rural Malawi. There's no real way of, getting to believe that this is what, God is going to take me out of here and end up doing things around the world.
Yeah.
But looking back now, God has been making the connections all along. From Malawi, I worked in Germany for a bit. I worked in Switzerland. I came here to the UK and then ended up in Minnesota and then came back to the UK. And I can clearly see God's hand at work. I know it's God who's been making the connections and making the moves.
That's really cool. Was that similar for you, Joel? I mean, you said that you already had a heart from a young age, you had these different cultures coming through your door, and your wife as well, got to put that in her. How do you know if that's something that, I like traveling, that's cool, or if you feel, oh no, this is God putting that on my heart?
Yeah, I think I really had some significant prophetic words as well, where God spoke to me about the nations and that I was going to be going to the nations. And that was something that I didn't understand, like Harvey was saying. When those people shared those words with me, I just thought, okay, well, let's see. I don't know what that means, but it's something you live with, and that heart for the nations, I think, grows and grows, and you understand this is God's heart, actually. So I think step by step, I realized when I was in London, surrounded by lots of people from different nations, that this was my people. And so I ended up spending more time with people from other nations, probably, than people from my own nation. And I was energized by that. That was something that I wasn't just trying to instigate or thought, this is the thing to do, but I found myself wanting to do that. And particularly people from Middle Eastern backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so that was something I felt increasingly God drawing me into. And it was like taking one step and realizing, okay, this is maybe how it's going to work. But still, even at that point, didn't realize I would be moving. And then when we moved, I think realizing this is all part of the same story that God started to speak to me about from the beginning.
Yeah.
But as I've followed him, it's become clear that this is the journey that we're all called into, actually.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it's like, it seems like there's a kind of a working in tandem together, where you might have an interest and then God speaks and you just keep stepping into it. And as you move forward more and more and look into it and maybe speak to people or pray about it, it's that partnership with God where it gets confirmed as you step into it. That's really cool. Yeah, you said something just now, Joel, about it being part of a story that we're all connected with, we're all involved in. Is this something that you think, yes, going out from your home country into the Middle East or into Africa or into Asia, that's what missions is? Or is there something that if someone feels called to mission, like you're saying, you're coming back to London and the nations are here, even if someone doesn't feel called to go, how do we partner with that, what God is doing missionally, even if we're not a missionary internationally?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is something that we all need to wrestle with. So as a disciple of Jesus, what are we called to do and how are we called to live? I think that's the thing that we always need to come back to. What is God speaking to us about? What's he saying to us? And then how do we respond to that?
Yeah.
If that's the DNA of a disciple, if God's speaking to us, and we see so many times he's called us to make disciples of all nations, that's something he's called all of us as disciples to do. So in a sense, we're all called to go.
Yeah.
Where are we called to go? That's another question. Who are we called to go to? That's another question. And God will speak to each of us in different ways. So I don't think everyone needs to go to the same place or go on the same journey, but God will lead us. Yeah. I think we need to be intentional about asking him and obeying him when he's asking us to do something, because it's never the easy thing. It's never the comfortable thing. Yeah. When God asks us to go and speak to someone and go and connect with a different people group, completely different from ourselves, it's always going to be uncomfortable. But I think that's what we're all called into.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I think that it's quite critical for us to get to the basics of the fact that Jesus called all disciples to make other disciples. So there should be no following Jesus without being involved in making disciples, wherever you are. Here, elsewhere in the world, we are always to be making disciples. And that's really being involved in God's mission in the world. At this point in time, in the 21st century, there are Christian communities in almost every country in the world. And so, actually, what that really means for us is we have to be ready to receive Christians from other parts of the world coming to make disciples wherever they are as they move around the world. So, I mean, we're talking here with Joe going to Turkey, me coming from Malawi to the UK. It's just part of what God is doing in the process of making disciples for Jesus around the world. This is what he initiated 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, I love what you're saying of there are Christian communities everywhere. And I love that too, because God's character is going to be displayed differently throughout all these different cultures and communities, and it's so beautiful. Has that been something you guys have experienced in your travels of culture shock or even reverse culture shock? Because I guess you were in the UK and you went to the States and back to the UK, and even I think if someone's listening, they're from the UK, we can have quite a west to east,
Yes.
quote unquote, mindset of missions, I suppose. But it's great that you're actually coming back to Liverpool and planting a church there. So how has that journey of coming and going been for you, Harvey?
I mean, for me, it's been life, really. I left my home country more than 20 years ago, and I've lived quite in a few countries in Europe, and then spent 7 years in the US. Mm-hmm. And every time you move, you're negotiating with a new culture. What does it mean to be a person in this culture? What is the good news in this culture? Or how do people respond to the good news in these cultures? And that's a constant thing that we have to live with. But also there's a sense in which even if you are in the same city for a long time, the culture in the city keeps shifting.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think some people say every 3 months you're dealing with a new culture.
Wow.
In
every 3 months?
City. Yeah.
Wow.
So you have to keep negotiating. What does the gospel look like to these people in this day and age? And next year it's going to look different. Mm-hmm. But that's part of what we are called to do as people who make disciples for Jesus.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, Joel, you were mentioning something similar to that of if we're thinking of young people listening to this podcast and even listening to talks back in other seminar streams from different events and things like that, how do we navigate that constantly shifting context of the culture that we're in, even if that's in our own school or our own community?
Yeah, great question. How do we navigate those changes? And I think sometimes it's being aware of where we're starting and how I think realizing that we need to have a posture of learning and constantly asking questions of our environment around us and what are the questions that other people have? Mm-hmm. Where are people engaging with truth? Where are they finding it difficult to navigate life? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? Mm-hmm. And same for us. And we're all working those things out. So being a learner and having a posture of learning I think is key as we're thinking about engaging people around us and particularly other nations. The nations are always changing.
Yeah.
And challenges in a nation now is going to be very different in 10 years, and that nation is going to be going through something very different. So someone coming from a nation is not going to be the same now and in 10 years or 10 years ago. So understanding we need to learn and ask questions, I think that's the posture we always need to have.
Yeah.
The curiosity that comes with, especially when you're dealing with the younger generation and their digital lives on social media, mm-hmm. and how the apps that they were using 3 years ago are not the apps they are using today.
Yeah.
That has totally shifted. And the apps they're using today, I think they're big in TikTok today. But 2 years down the road, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
And so we need to constantly learn how do we engage young people in these spaces as the world around them, the tools they're using, the conversations they're having, the languages they're using are always shifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's different cultures from country to country, but even generation to generation as well. So young people today, they have a really quickly changing landscape. Even we talk about like memes and trends and all these things, they change like week to week. I was speaking to someone and she was saying like, oh yeah, that word, whatever slang it was at the time, is like, we don't even use that anymore. I'm like, I was just getting a grasp on what that meant, but fine, we'll move on. So yeah, it's just like you said, you have to constantly be, I guess, just aware and even just praying and being like, okay, God, how am I in step with you and how do I love these people? I think it's really interesting thinking about being missional in our own contexts. So for me, I live in Brighton, down on the south coast of England at the moment. And I went to this poetry event because I like to do some spoken words and poetry. And it was really amazing listening to people do their poems, because I just felt like I got the heart of these people in a brand new way, and the heart of the city in a brand new way. And in poetry, people are they're bearing their souls, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I was just sat there thinking, man, these people need Jesus.
Yeah.
But people can, like a young person could be playing football with their mates. And in that conversation, like you said, when you're always listening, you're always learning, you're like, oh, actually, I can hear where people need Jesus in this. And
Right.
would you say it's accurate that we almost, it reminds me of when people are looking for counterfeit money. You learn what the real thing looks like, and then you can always spot the fake ones. If we know what the real thing is, we can almost spot the desire for it in other people. Would you say that would be
Yeah, I think that's
accurate?
a great analogy. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. How would you encourage, thanks. How would you encourage someone to, if they're in that place and they're thinking, right, oh, I can go to my mates at football, I can go to my friends at school, at dance, at choir, whatever. How would you encourage them to, I guess, seek that real thing so that they know it and can share it with others?
I think, where would I start with that? I think there's understanding the real thing, as in how life looks like with Jesus. I guess that's what we're asking, the kind of the real, true life that Jesus gives us, and thinking about how do we experience this life of knowing him speaking to us, knowing him giving us truth and meaning and value, and realizing the people around us are searching for all of those things and seeking for them in different places, and they're not finding them. So I guess realizing, wow, there's an answer. So as I'm listening, as I'm learning about how people are trying to find this meaning in their lives, I'm learning what they're seeking, but I'm living with the answer as well. I'm living with wanting to share. And I guess that's the heart of mission and wanting to make disciples, is sharing the word of God, sharing what God speaks over us, what he says of us, so that someone, if they say, I want to live like that, I want to hear that word, I want to start living that out in my life and being a disciple, then there's the opportunity. So I think, there's that excitement of, we have the answer for every question and every heart, every longing in every nation. And that is the answer that we always live with, the life that we live with. So I think it's amazing as we go seeking the lost, as we go speaking to people who are wanting to search for truth, we know that God is going to be speaking to people. He wants to use us to speak to people.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, any thoughts on that one, Harvey?
Yeah, I think of discipleship or making disciples as really a reflection of something that Jesus does in Matthew 16. When he takes his disciples out of country to a place called Caesarea Philippi, and then there he asks them, who do people say I am? And they have their own answers. This one says this, one says that. And then he says, who do you say I am? And Peter has the answer, but he has the answer not necessarily because he knows the answer. He has it because he has heard the Father speak.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, finally, one of the disciples can actually hear the Spirit speaking.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really discipleship is about. That getting people to a place where they can hear the voice of the Father, they can hear the voice of the Spirit. And so those people who turn to Jesus, really the work then becomes, how do we get them to a place where they can actually hear the voice of the Spirit, how they can discern that this is the Spirit of God speaking to me.
Yeah.
That is critical.
Yeah.
And that I think is part of what we really need to be doing.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, because we were speaking a bit earlier about the difference between a short-term mission trip. So I've been on a few of those where you might go and do all this evangelism and share the gospel with someone. They become a Christian, and I fly out 2 days later. So if there's not infrastructure or the plan to connect them with a church, that's not really discipleship, I guess I would say. Yeah. And so how would you encourage that? Like, what does discipleship look like in that? How do you develop it? And I guess even if someone is maybe listening thinking, oh wait, am I being a disciple or am I just coasting? Am I kind of saved but not really living it? What would that journey of discipleship look like?
I mean, that story takes place 3 years after Jesus had gathered the 12 together around him. It's been a journey. It's not just come in somebody's lives and then disappear. He has walked with them. He has shown them a lot of things, how to pray, how to fast, how to do all these things. He has actually journeyed with them for 3 years.
Yeah.
And once that happens, right, it's interesting because once Peter is able to hear the voice of the Father, Jesus says, I'm ready now to talk about the cross.
Wow, yeah.
Right? And then, of course, Peter then rebukes Jesus. And an interesting story. But it's taking time, walking with people, sharing lives with people, being available to answer their questions, sometimes being ready to ask difficult questions. And really, and the aim is to get to a place where they can hear the voice of the Father themselves.
It does seem like there can be, we're in such, talking about culture, such a, I've heard it called a microwave culture. We want everything instantly. And so even thinking about, if we're journeying with people, we're walking this with people, it might take some time. Even them coming to faith, coming to know Jesus, let alone working all the other stuff out afterwards, which is really the Holy Spirit doing it. And we just kind of go with that nudge, don't we? Yeah.
And something, obviously, the discipleship is, the word for disciple is apprentice, is probably closer to apprentice, and watching a master at work and following a master and seeing how they do something and then being instructed, hearing what the master is saying and starting to do that same thing. I think that's the journey we go on, isn't it? And hearing from God, as Harvey's saying, hearing the Spirit, hearing the Father directing us, starting to do it. We're needing someone that's further down the journey to guide, to challenge, to encourage, to say, come on, keep going. Yeah, that's great. So I think the discipleship journey really is about being an apprentice.
Yeah.
And in our microwave culture where we have, we can watch a YouTube video to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to set my tent up and it said, set your tent up in 3 minutes. And I was like, this is fantastic. It took me an hour and a half to actually do it. But I needed probably apprenticing. I needed to know someone that can put up tents really well. But I think if we wanted a plumber to come and do some plumbing on our house, we wouldn't ask someone that's just watched a YouTube video and said, I can do it now because I've watched this. You want someone that's deeply learned from a master, who's seen how it's done, who's been taught, instructed how it's done. I think that's when we want disciples that can multiply. We want disciples who have learnt in a deep way the ways of Jesus, how to hear the Father, and then being able to teach others as well and be able to guide others.
Yeah, that's really cool. It makes me think of how, Barnabas brings in Paul, and then Paul then disciples Timothy. You've almost got those 3 layers. There's someone above you who is able to mentor you, disciple you. But then as you're learning, you can kind of have someone coming along afterwards. Do you think that's a good framework? I'm just thinking some of the people listening might be 13, 14 years old. And so is there someone who can come after them? Should they focus on just learning for a bit? Should they wait before they go and try and talk to their friends? How do they navigate that learning, but also going?
I mean, I think we are all called to be making disciples, right? 10-year-olds can make disciples of their fellow 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but while doing that, we ought to always be learning from others who are further along on the journey than us, and we are training others who are coming after us on the same journey. And in the education world, we talk about how you don't really understand a thing up until you can teach it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I do think that, in the faith as well, there's a way in which once you begin to disciple others, you're having to answer their questions. They're making you read books that you could not read otherwise. that's a learning thing for you.
Yeah. That's
But while you're doing that, you're modeling it for them so that they can also do the same when they're talking to other people. And if you're learning from somebody else, it just makes everything easier.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that, I think when we're a young person maybe thinking, can I start discipling anyone? Can I encourage anyone? Anything we've learned that we think is going to help someone else, I think in teaching, in starting to share what we've got, I think actually that's where the growth comes. That's when we really start to grow. We realize, oh, wow, I can actually help someone else. I can actually disciple someone else. And the Holy Spirit helps us to encourage others. And I think that through trying to teach and through trying to encourage someone else, that's often where we grow as well.
Yeah.
So I think even for short-term mission trips or anything like that, when we go, we're doing something, but I think often the growth is in us. We're learning as we're starting to do something. We grow and we learn and we grow as a disciple as we're starting to disciple other people.
Yeah, that's really good.
For many Christians who have come from Africa, that's where I grew up, I know their stories, our discipleship really happened in high schools and universities.
Yeah.
And so it was young people discipling other young people.
Yeah.
Right? And when we talk about the growth of Christianity in Africa, the revival going on in Africa, it's young people, it's high school students mostly driving that revival.
Yeah.
And so, yes, young people can disciple others.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really strong because it's that one anothering almost, that you don't necessarily need it to be, I mean, ideally, if you can have someone who is older in their faith and more mature, they'll know so much, but we can do it for each other as well. So yeah, like you said, in school, in university, if you have friends, pray together, read the Bible together, that one anothering. It makes me think of this verse in 1 Peter 3:15, where it says, always being prepared. So in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And so it's one of those things where if you're with your friends, you can almost even, in a safe place, if you want to practice like role play questions you might get asked, or that people do ask you at school, and be like, okay, if someone asks you this, what are you going to say? And you're kind of training each other up as well, isn't it? That's really cool. Joel, I think we'll just finish by asking you a question. So you've actually got an opportunity coming up in the not too distant future for some people who are here at Newday who might be able to go on a trip. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have, which we're really excited about. So Newday Pioneer, first team that we're taking to Turkey, to Southeast Turkey. And we're going to go for about 10 days, 7 to 10 days at the end of June, so after exams, as an opportunity for people to explore this heart of, or calling to the nations. So Antakya is a place that was destroyed. 90% of the buildings in Antakya were completely flattened by the earthquake that happened 2.5 years ago. So we're going to go and serve the people of that city, learn what life is like for them, look to do some practical help and serve the families that we've connected with there, but also hear some new disciples that have seen the love of the disciples that have been serving there over the last 1.5 to 2 years. And they've said, I want to also start following this Jesus that you're talking about. So we're going to spend time with them, hear from them, learn from them, encourage them. So we'd love anyone who feels that heart of calling to go. Maybe you don't know where you're going. Maybe you're not sure if this is exactly the right location, but you feel like you want to explore it. Please get in touch and come and join us on this great adventure.
Amazing. That sounds like such a cool opportunity. Yes, we're going to finish this episode there. If you are interested in that opportunity to join that Pioneer trip, we'll make sure that there are details available in the description of either this video or of this podcast. But as always, thank you for joining us on the Newday Podcast, and keep an eye out for the next episode.